Welcome to the party. I'm not here right now, but I want you to listen very carefully. These guys are very funny, so pay attention. Enough talk. It's showtime.
Hello, and welcome to Bags of Action. On this episode, we're talking about Enter the Dragon, the classic martial arts film from
1973, I think.
Where's IMDb when you need it?
Indeed. I think it's 73.
Let us check. So this is an unusual first because we're doing it in the same room.
We are live. That isn't the reason for the long delay since the last one. We haven't been waiting for this moment.
73, look at that. Bargain. What a treat. Yes, we're back. Everyone else is...
With a vengeance? Have we got a vengeance at all?
Let's say that, yes.
Okay.
We're back with a vengeance. And we're talking about the joy that is Enter the Dragon, the classic film starring... I think it's the first Bruce Lee film that I ever saw, I think.
It's the last Bruce Lee film I ever saw.
Really?
I went in chronological order and never saw Game of Death.
Impressive.
So
there you go.
Yes.
So how old were you when you first saw this?
How old was I when I first saw Enter the Dragon? I was probably about 17, I think.
Okay. So did you see the version with the breadsticks on the front as opposed to the nunchucks?
Yes, the nunchucks were cut. There's quite a lot. Having watched it again today, I reckon 20 minutes of it gone. It's only an hour and a half film, so I reckon I saw an hour and 10-minute version.
Right.
Because the whole nunchuck scene, although it's not really nunchucks as such, it was cut. It was during the... I was trying to explain this to some American friends online the other day, that, yes, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was called Hero Turtles. Why? And there were no nunchucks in any films. Why? And you couldn't say the word ninja in public. Why? And when you look back on it, it does sound ridiculous that... I think one school somewhere, a boy took a ninja star to school, and then the tabloids got hold of it, and ninja culture and martial arts culture in general was banned in the UK.
Yeah, so for many years, the front cover of the Enter the Dragon DVD and poster and all the rest of it, instead of him holding a set of nunchucks in his outstretched hand, they couldn't wipe that out because it was a central figure and it was Bruce Lee, so they changed it to sort of look like a French baguette that he was holding. Or a bow staff, but it didn't work because it was a bow staff with a bend in the middle. And digital art wasn't that good back in the day then.
Enter the panini.
You've been working on that one. Good shadow, Homer. So yeah, that's what we had for many, many years, and then it wasn't until years later when they started digging out all these banned films like The Exorcist and Clockwork Orange, and then they thought, nunchucks isn't probably too bad because someone's head spinning around and spewing pea soup. No. So let's go with putting nunchucks back in.
Yes, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, he was really, really good with them. So it seems a shame to cut that bit from the film. I think.
I agree.
I think I was probably about the same age when I first saw this.
You said this was the first. So the first experience of Bruce Lee was in this film.
I think so. I think it was the most popular one that was around.
Yeah.
It wasn't years later that I saw him in the yellow, now infamous yellow tracksuit with the black stripe that they've stolen.
I've never seen Game of Death.
Well, you see, for the young folk out there, you kids, if you're watching Kill Bill, and you think, oh, she looks really good in that outfit. Well, it's all down to Game of Death.
Homage.
Homage, indeed, to Bruce Lee, with him climbing the pyramid building and fighting different villains every level to reach the top. And one of the villains was the infamous basketball player. I can't remember his name.
Abdul-Jabbar?
Yes, well done, well done. So one of the levels that you had to fight was Kareem. It was sort of a huge giant man doing kung fu.
It's mad actually, because by the sound of it, it was like Big Bosses, but his first film, I believe, was called Big Boss.
I think so, yeah. So he just went full circle. He came up with the idea of it, and then they did it, and then
But they shot some. There's quite a lot of it was shot after he died, wasn't it? So they think they put.
Yes.
It wasn't Bruce Lee with an L.I., I don't think, because he went on to make about 20 other films.
Yes, it was his body double or his friend or something that did some of it for him.
Yeah, because I basically had like a Saturday job, and one of the guys I work with, I was going to say a guy called Gopher. That wasn't his name. You can probably guess how he got that name.
Big teeth.
Almost. You've seen Caddyshack a lot. And he basically was a big martial arts fan. And at the time, I'd watched quite a few Jackie Chan films, Police Story, that kind of thing. I was well into Van Damme films. So I'd seen Bolo Yeung in Bloodsport before I'd seen him in Enter the Dragon.
Wow, okay.
I was like, that guy from Bloodsport looks young.
Wait.
And he basically went, I've got all the DVDs, the Bruce Lee DVDs, although apart from Gimme Death, which just possibly wasn't there. Maybe actually probably wasn't. It wouldn't have been, actually, sorry, VHS cassettes.
DVDs?
It was post-Betamax. And said, I'll lend them to you. And I, in my kind of typical kind of aimlessly retentive way, went, well, I shall have to watch them in chronological order. Obviously, it's a back catalogue.
You have to.
So watched his stuff that was a little bit more, how can I put it, character driven, a little bit deeper, and then kind of, so I think I was a little bit disappointed by Enter the Dragon by the time I got to it.
Really? Wow. Oh, because I know it's a lot of people's favourite Bruce Lee film. Is it too commercial for you, do you think?
Yeah, too Americanised, too westernised.
Too westernised.
For my tastes.
Well, it was compared to some of his earlier ones. It was very westernised.
And I think as well, and I'll come to this in a minute, but the other films are very much a Bruce Lee film. Here, it's more of it's not completely an ensemble piece. He's still a star, but
yes.
There's certainly, it's about the three of them in a way, and there are long scenes that he doesn't really appear in.
No, and isn't it about the woman who's a spy as well?
Yes.
Who's there, and it's been a while since I've seen it. You saw it today.
I saw it this very day.
How did it compare to when you first saw it? Do you still like it or not?
I liked it more than I did before.
We got a low opinion of it then.
I wouldn't say low opinion. It's still a very, very good film. Let's not
poo-poo it.
No, let's not poo-poo it. I think it's a very good film. I think there are some things about it that I think could have been done better, but I'm probably sitting there thinking from a storytelling and narrative perspective far too deeply about a film about the greatest martial artist ever doing very good martial arts.
Yes.
So I still would say that Way of the Dragon is better. Controversial.
Ooh. At least you didn't say.
I haven't seen that for ages.
At least you didn't say Mortal Kombat. Stole its idea from this, and it was better.
No. Or The Quest.
Yes.
That would be bad.
Yes.
I like the Lalo Schifrin score greatly.
Yes.
Yes, got a sort of. Well, James Bond is actually the big thing I noticed from watching it again a bit. Well, I'd say a little bit older. Bless me, a lot older. The Bond, the fact it feels like a Bond film.
Yes.
And there is a certain kind of air of 70s Bond about the whole thing. And then the different score has got kind of a Bond Western crossover kind of flavour to it.
It's got, in some strange ways, it reminds me of Casino Royale, because you've got the main story, which is in a Casino Royale, it's him playing poker,
yep.
But then there's all the stuff him creeping around the edges. And in this, it's the main story of him fighting people, but it's him out of hours, sneaking around, spying, trying to find out what happened to his friend, and it's got that same kind of parallel of the main story is this, but actually that's not the real story.
Yeah.
But it becomes more important. The fighting is obviously what draws people to it, the competition and the film, but that's not all of what the film is about. But people may not be interested in kind of the espionage side, but that's part of the film.
It's a big part, actually. I think that's what I noticed watching it again, is actually the tournament is quite small in comparison to the espionage plot.
Yes.
And certainly in terms of screen time.
I think so.
You are stupid.
So, we haven't actually talked much about what the actual story is of the film. Tell me the story, because you've seen it today.
Bruce Lee plays a character called Mr. Lee.
Stretch.
Yeah.
Stretch there.
Who is from a Shaolin temple. I still can't work out, having seen it again, whether he is a spy or whether they just chat to him for a bit and then he becomes a spy. I don't know if this is his first spy work or they've just gone, you're very good at kicking people in the head. I know. Come spying. But the ludicrously posh English gentleman who says bloody in every sentence.
Really?
Yeah, I've noticed that. It's like, yeah, any bloody fool can pull a trigger. And I don't care who he's even bloody in bed with, wake him up. And don't mind putting on an English accent. I'm English.
Yeah, that's not a real English accent. Until you go, hello, now I'm talking an English accent. Until, what, that's English. What we're doing now, obviously, is not an English
not
accent.
The slightest.
No, there's only one.
So Mr. Lee, he is sent to an island, which is the home of Mr. Han, who runs a tournament every 3 years, but he's also a drug enforcer and human trafficking person.
Do you know who he reminds me of? We'll probably come on to it in a bit. Dr. No.
Yeah.
But we'll come back to that.
That makes good sense. So they go there. There are no guns allowed on the island because it would ruin the story.
Yeah.
So basically, Mr. Lee goes on a boat in a scene very similar to Mamma Mia.
Right.
Have you seen the start of Mamma Mia? I think they pretty much.
I'm not going to admit having seen that film.
Was pretty much taken from Enter the Dragon, and he meets up with Roper, played by John Saxon, the hairiest man for cinema.
What the world?
And also Jim Kelly, playing a blaxploitation character with a fro, called Williams.
Yeah.
And the three of them are the kind of outsiders in this tournament, and so yes, Mr. Lee has to fight in this tournament, but at the same time, and certainly in the evenings, while the other two are pleasuring ladies of the night, he disappears into the night and goes looking for evidence to bring Mr. Han down and bring evidence to a shadowy agency.
It's so Bond. The more you're talking about it, the more you talk about the espionage, the island, Mr. Han is Dr. No.
Underground layer. It feels very kind of Moonraker.
Yeah. Secret underground.
Yeah.
It could be set in a volcano, and then it would be Bond.
Even I think there are certain bits of Roper, John Saxon's character. There's a little bit of a kind of Roger Moore kind of esque kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting for me, having seen the films where it was Bruce Lee pretty much on his own.
Yes.
And then with kind of a slightly broader cast, is seeing him interact with other people. And I think I've always thought this. I think the same about Jackie Chan is, yes, their physicality is amazing. This is possibly the art could be the best martial artist ever.
Yes.
But he's also an amazing actor, and it's all in his eyes. His eyes. There's humour there. He doesn't say very much in the film, but there's scenes where you just get a real sense of how his character's kind of feeling by just a little move in his eyes. It's some knowing looks.
Yes. Speaking of pleasuring the ladies,
yes.
There's the
where's this going?
Get comfortable. There's the infamous scene now where in the evening the madam turns up with her harem of girls and goes to see all of the fighters one at a time and sort of says. And said, you've made notes on it,
yes.
Copious notes, actually. And she says to them, you must relax, and you must have, you're here to enjoy yourself as well as fighting and all the rest of it. And then Jim Kelly's character says, he says, doesn't he pick 3? Is it 4?
I think it's 4. I was expecting it to be 3, and it was 4.
Brilliant.
He says, yeah, you shouldn't have. I'll take you, darling.
Yeah.
And you. and you. Sorry about the rest of you. I've had a long day and I'm tired.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant. But I think the classiest response is Roper's, because she goes to see him next. She goes to see him next.
That's right.
And she's still there with a number of very attractive young ladies, and she says to him, well, who do you want? And he says, he actually chooses the madame herself.
Yeah.
Who is a little bit older. She's still an attractive woman, but I can't remember what he says to her.
She says pick one, and he says I already have, and then just holds her glare
for
a slight beat longer than is comfortable, and she says wise decision.
She sort of think, yeah, she was going to be one.
Next time you see them together, she's walking on his back. Like that.
Well, yes, but you just sort of think, does that mean all the other ones are dead? Or does she know a lot more and experience has paid off? And has she taught all of the girls? The mind boggles. The mind boggles at the possibilities. But yes, Roper is a wise man.
Yes.
Very wise. And Bruce Lee chooses the woman that he's there to rescue. Yeah. And then just talks to her.
That's one of these fortuitous things that they throw apples in the air and then these little darts. And whether she's doing it because she knows who he is and she's doing it, or it's a bit of a big coincidence, but he catches the dart from her so he can go, yes, the lady who gave me this dart. I'd like her. A
little bit of a MacGuffin there we'll forgive.
And the world's heaviest edit. There's a scene where she comes to the room and they're talking to each other, and it just cuts them sitting down in mid-conversation when they're standing up and then they're sitting down. It's a really noticeable, and they've obviously shot that scene twice and then spliced it together. I rewound it twice just in case it was a problem with my laptop, but no.
Okay. Yes, so you've got Roper, you've got Williams, you've got Bruce Lee as Mr. Lee.
Yes, and Bolo Yeung as Bolo.
Was Chuck Norris in this one?
No, Bob Wall, who's also in Way of the Dragon, as is Chuck Norris. But no, it's Bob Wall is O'Hara, because they do to try and give it a little bit more of a motivation for Mr. Lee rather than just I've been asked to go spy. Then he finds out that the O'Hara character and some of the other of Hans goons. That's quite hard to say after a couple of beers. Hans Goons. Hans Goons.
He's a German guy who looks after my car. Hello.
Hans Henchman. That's even harder. Hans Henchman. It's like
Hans Goons, if you like.
Hans Henchman basically had chased his sister and fought his sister, and a really nice kind of long sequence, which is very kind of police story-esque. And then at the end of it, she doesn't want them to do anything untoward to her, so she stabs herself in the stomach with a piece of glass, and for honour purposes, I believe, kills herself. So, but before that, I think she her or the other chap. Cut the face of the Bob Wall's character O'Hara, so he's got a scar, which is
so we know that it's him.
It's him, and then so when he's there, he has someone to have a personal beef with, as well as
lots of glaring,
lots of out of the corner looks.
And you know that at some point, Mr. Lee is going to face off with him and kick the crap out of him a lot. I've got to mention it because we'll probably forget later.
Yep.
Sound effects.
Yes.
In every single Bruce Lee fight, but also in this one, there's the sound effects that you don't get now in films, and I kind of miss. I mean, the closest I've seen recently was in The Expendables, and Expendables 2, where whenever a punch is thrown, wherever someone gets slapped, you get this great kind of noises and great sound effects. And
I think as well that the sound effects he makes himself, which again,
little noises,
exhaling and kind of, which I think are some of his best dialogue.
Well, for a guy who doesn't say much, good dialogue, good sound effects there. Yeah, but I love the sound effects in the fights. I just love it. It just, and
even the things like movement of people's clothing and stuff. Things.
Yes.
I remember years ago, and this is, it must be before DVD extras, so it must have been like a late night behind the film. There's a film called The Perfect Weapon, starring Jeff Speakman.
I've seen that.
It's where Steve Glaze is over.
Yep.
And it was a program all about the making of this, and it basically half of it was people throwing themselves on crash mats and then getting pieces of gis and martial arts outfits and rustling them really close to the amount of foley that actually went into fight sequences, which I don't think they do.
The thing is, another thing, it's over the top and it's ridiculous, the sound effects, but the sound of someone actually punching someone else is really crap because there's almost no noise at all apart from someone groaning, and that just looks rubbish in a film. So having it slightly over the top like this, having this kind of really eccentric noises of punches and kicks and whoops and things, I love it.
I think it particularly works. A film like this, the film is quite over the top.
It's not realistic, let's be honest.
The dialogue is over the top, the scenario, the claw, the bear claw, the hand where
we'll come on to that.
Everything is kind of Spinal Tapped almost, taken up to 11. So I think the sound effects just enhance that. I mean, it's not a comedy by any stretch of the imagination. It's
no.
It takes itself relatively seriously, but it's certainly in that 70s kind of. It's overtly a genre film.
Well, it's got Jim Kelly in, who did blaxploitation, which wasn't, it's not straight comedy like you got with like Black Dynamite very recently, which was a piss take comedy, straight 100% comedy blaxploitation movie from about 2 years ago. Whereas this is some comedic sets, effects, sound effects, but the film is relatively trying to play it straight because there's the serious threat.
I think then it's quite well done because I think Jim Kelly is the comic relief in a lot of ways. He has all the best dialogue.
Yes.
But I guess when they do finally kind of put him in jeopardy, it's more powerful because he's basically the guy you've been laughing at.
Joss Whedon's been watching Enter the Dragon, I think. He's based his entire career on that mix of comedy and...
Because there's a great line as they're crossing over in the boat. Getters are the same the world over. They stink.
He's class.
And then you've got, when he first, bullshit, Mr.
Man.
Handman.
That was for you, Barry.
You're something straight out of a comic book. Which did make me laugh, particularly today.
Yes. But Mr. Han, we've got to talk about Mr. Han and his... So, it's the idea of... It's almost the thing that he's the ultimate villain. He's the ultimate kind of fighter, the person that you get at the end of these games or the end of competition. And it's an old bloke with a little scratchy claw on one hand.
Yes, but he's got various claws. He does have an upgrade at one point. 'Cause he starts off with like a furry, I don't know what it is, furry bear claw.
Yeah.
And then he takes it to more of like a Wolverine type. What year was this film? 73?
73.
What year was Wolverine first in comic?
Good question.
Wonder if it was 74.
Maybe.
Controversial. We should have the bear one. So you get having upgrades. And I think the end fight in the mirrors and stuff is quite well done.
Yes.
The thing that I found really strange, I think watching it, is that the structure of the villains doesn't make the sense that you'd usually expect. So Han is just this kind of shadowy figure, this guy who runs this tournament. But the person we see the most is O'Hara because of what happened with his sister.
Yeah.
So you expect this long journey to fight O'Hara. Well, actually, in the tournament, it's the first person he fights and he kills him. Spoilers. If you haven't seen it by now, it's been out a while.
39 years it's been out, so spoilers.
And it just felt really, because it felt like, oh, okay, that's happened. Bolo Yeung is kind of he's huge.
Yeah.
And he's taken out relatively. The biggest criticism I have of this film is that you never ever think that Bruce Lee is in any jeopardy whatsoever.
Right.
So he's like it's almost like he's superhuman. You do kind of with Han at the end, but it's not the person you expect him to be. You don't expect the end villain to be, although they're from the same temple, so that makes sense. But you don't really expect that to be I expected like Bolo, watching it again, having forgotten. I expected him and O'Hara to face off at the end, or him and Bolo Yeung to face off at the end, and it kind of. I think the tournament aspect is quite anticlimactic because the three main characters, they just beat everyone really easily.
Or maybe expect the twist of he has to fight his friend. He has to fight Roper.
Well,
they
do try and get him to fight Roper.
Yeah,
and then Roper puts his arm in front of Bruce Lee. I don't think you could ever put your arm in front of Bruce Lee and stop him from moving forward. I think that goes against the laws of physics. It couldn't happen. And it's like there's some other things that I think, like, Bruce Lee's character killing people, which hadn't happened in his other films.
Yes.
And the one thing is his character's noticeably, as far as set, but uncomfortable, and you get some kind of close-ups of his eyes and kind of, but it did feel a little bit. I know he's playing a part, but I think from the other films that he's done in his kind of philosophy, it did feel kind of...
So do you think he did this one because he thought it would be popular, but it went against some of his...
Possibly. I'm trying to remember again, back at the time, I watched a lot of sort of documentaries about this time in his career. And, I think that might have been the case. I mean, obviously, it was to try and get him to a wider audience. So, having not done kung fu and stuff, which he pitched, don't forget.
Yes.
The idea of kung fu, then it was taken away from him.
And who else make a surprise appearance in this film? A surprise cameo.
Well, according to Wikipedia, Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan played a henchman who has his neck snapped by Bruce Lee, apparently.
Critics have referred to Enter the Dragon as a low-rent James Bond thriller and a remake of Dr. No.
There you go.
We
said that's the thing about Mr. Han, that he's got these kind of disposable strange hands. Yeah. Just the one, whereas Dr. No had both of them. And of course, Dr. No was 1962. So
12 years
before. So I don't know. I think it has a lot in common with it. It's not the same film in many ways, but a lot of parallels. I still like it. I still have a lot of affection for it. It's not one that I'd want to go back and watch that often. I'd want to watch it from time to time, but I think it's more just for the mix of comedy and action.
Yeah, I think for me, and again, I was kind of I would probably preferred it more today than before. I think a lot of things was the villain thing, because the main fights near the end is just him versus loads of henchmen. Now it's kind of like quantity.
Yeah.
Actually, I'd rather him spend longer fighting someone who's really good. But I think that the criticism I would have, and it sounds like I'm really down the film, and I'm not. I really did enjoy it. is each act is weaker than the one before. I think the first it's an hour and a half film actually with a very strict half an hour act structure.
Yeah.
And the first half an hour is amazing, and they don't really set foot on the island until half an hour into the film. The backstory, why he's gone there, Roper playing golf.
Yes.
As what happens there, goes on the run because he owes money. Jim Kelly, Williams being racially abused, and he almost doesn't get to go by the police and all that kind of stuff. And you think, I think if they kept it at that level all the way through, I think it would have been a much better film. I think it kind of, I was going to say peters off. I don't like that expression. It trails off as it gets further in, and doesn't deliver on some of the things that it set up. And also, maybe it's just because I've seen a lot of the other kind of tournament-based films. I felt like the tournament should have been a bigger part of the story.
So you think of it like Bloodsport, like
Possibly.
Van Damme. See, that has I don't think that has any of the humour that this does. It's been a long time since I've seen.
Okay, USA.
But,
Come on.
Yeah, but it's not the same
I'm
kind
laughing. I can still laughing.
I don't know why you're laughing.
For 10 minutes.
I don't know why you're laughing. It's just not the same kind of. This doesn't take itself too seriously.
No.
I think Bloodsport takes itself far too seriously. And there again, that has got. Jean-Claude Van Damme, who's an amazing visual guy and physical specimen. He's brilliant. His acting is,
Underrated?
I was going to say wooden. I was say wooden would be being unkind to wood.
See nowhere to run.
You go on about this all the time. You've got to
change it all your thoughts.
Hey, you want to see a good film with him in? Go and see the new Universal Soldier one that's coming out.
Really?
The trailer for that looks hideous. It looks like it's going to be a grisly super 18 film with him as a real villain.
Yeah.
Looks brutal. And I think he's kind of gone in one side of being a terrible actor and come out the other side a slightly marginally better actor.
What you can't hear is me mouthing. He's not a terrible actor over and over again and shaking my head.
For those who aren't in the room, which is everyone other than me, they can't hear you shaking your head. Yes, but anyway, so comparatively to Bloodsport, I think this it doesn't take itself as seriously. Bloodsport took it a lot more seriously. This has got a lot more amusing characters with great dialogue and great one-liners, as the characters meant, Roper and stuff, and Williams. But I don't know. I think I'd rather watch this than Bloodsport.
Okay.
What about you?
I'd probably rather watch Blood, but that basically,
love Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Makes, to most people, I'd imagine, my opinion of this film null and void. Although I've tried to give a little bit of almost highbrow criticism of it.
No, well,
from a narrative perspective.
Well, of course.
Then people go, you think Jean-Claude Van Damme's a good actor and you prefer Bloodsport? Get off of the podcast.
Go away and never come
don't
back.
ever,
No,
get in touch with me again.
I love Bruce Lee. I think he was amazing martial artist, perhaps one of the best ever in the world ever.
Yeah, totally agree.
He made the film.
Yes.
If you'd put someone else in the role, I'm not sure it would have worked as well. For a guy who says very little,
yeah,
as was common around that time in some of the other best leading men, sort of Steve McQueen and they've aped it in modern day, that kind of pattern with things like Driver with Ryan Gosling, where he says about 20, 30 words and that's it. So being a strong silent type can still work, and it worked really well then for Bruce Lee because he didn't have to say much. He just kicked the crap out of people, and he did that.
It's that quiet intensity, and it sounds awful to compare it to Jackie Chan and then later in the new reboot of Karate Kid, but there are parallels of two martial artists who are very good facial actors that kind of they again through their eyes let you see what they're thinking. And I think there's some amazing moments in it that he elevates the film way higher. And again, don't get me wrong, I think it's a very, very good film, but I think that I saw it at that age. Had I seen it in the 70s, I think I'd have a different opinion of it.
Yeah.
And had I seen it having not seen a ridiculously large amount of low-budget tournament-based martial arts films, I probably would have had a different opinion of it. But I still think it's a great film. I think the setup and the first third is up there with the best sort of genre films of all time. And I think the fusion of spy and martial arts I think is great.
It almost sounds like he after some of the other films that he's done, he wanted to do this one because he thought it would perhaps be more commercial, or maybe he was trying to, with some of the stuff that he was doing, the kind of the intensity, the quiet moments, he was trying to raise the bar of it and try and make it.
I think was it. I'm trying to think if it was. I think it was a co-production, wasn't it, between Golden Harvest or Golden Harvest made it, but Warner distributed it.
Let's find out, shall we?
And at the risk of being totally sacrilegious, I'd quite like to see it remade.
There you go. So it says studio was Golden Harvest, and it was distributed by Warner Brothers.
Okay.
Yeah. So a remake.
Yeah.
Haven't they tried to do this several times? As I said, like Bloodsport, like Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
one was based on.
But Bloodsport's a true story, but it's not a true. It's been proven. It wasn't a true story.
Well, this is a true story. It's based on Bruce Lee's life. Well, no. But so, all right. If you did a remake, who would you put in it, and what would you do?
That's the bit that I don't. I would fill in. Would
you still have that comedic element? Would you want to play it straight?
Really, actually, it would be very hard. Think about it. I thought today, thinking, because I was picking the story apart and going, well, surely this should have happened next, and he should have fought him then, not this soon, and Hans shouldn't really have explained what he was doing, like 45 minutes into the film.
Well, it's like all good Bond villains do. Well, explain.
He did, but to the wrong person, really, and I think maybe the studio didn't want to give Bruce Lee those moments, because if it was a Bond film, he would have revealed himself to Bond. Bond really let everyone know who he was.
Yeah.
And basically, it's the kind of hiding in plain sight, isn't it? Bond films are quite often about
him stood
two
there.
of them kind of weighing each other up and who's the better man. And I think they went through that, but I wonder if there was a version of the script where Mr. Lee, after he had his nighttime escapades, but not the
not the Roper escapades with the madam.
If after he went off and kind of whether Han would have just gone to him, because instead he goes to Williams, who's killed rather quickly.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Sorry.
And then he goes to Roper to try and get him on board, and then he kind of goes, "Oh yeah, it was you." And do you know what I mean? It kind of it feels almost like, we can't let the Oriental gentleman have the big conversation. He needs to be over there fighting some other people. I don't know, because it's early 70s, whether that was a consideration, but it kind of follows those Bond beats. But I think for about 20 minutes, Bruce Lee gets kind of sidelined.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how well it did now. So there you go. So the budget. So this is 1973. The budget was $850,000, so nearly $1 million, which is, that's US dollars. Gross revenue, 25 million. 25 million.
And then 200 million worldwide.
200 million worldwide.
It's not a bad return.
So I can kind of see in some ways, if Bruce Lee was wanting to do something, elevate it, to do more with it and have something a bit more personal, and they went this kind of commercial model, and it made 225 million, whatever it might be, he must have been not disappointed, but slightly kind of saddened by that. If he's trying to... I don't
think it did that, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, I don't think it did that much better. I think it still had the people who would watch that kind of film. Still did probably very, very well in Asia, and then in other parts of the world, there were sort of the people that would go and watch that kind of film. I don't think it had necessarily a massive crossover, but if you probably look at home video and DVD and Blu-ray and TV watching revenue, it's probably it's still a film that people watch a lot and really enjoy.
I think for him, he was thinking it was another great sort of film, and for everybody, so everybody else was thinking it was a great action film, and he was seeing it as Taken 2, just like a commercial cash in on something on a franchise. Same with talking action film. Have you seen Taken 2?
I haven't yet.
Everyone, I enjoyed the first one, and everyone's saying, "Oh, the second one is quite good." Every single critic I've ever heard, and even the ones I trust, including Mark Kermode, have said it is the biggest money-making, desperate grab to build on the franchise of the first, And they pushed it down from a hard R 18 film to a 15 in Taken 2 in an attempt to get more people in. I'm thinking, hang on, the first one worked really well. One of the reasons was that it was so hard violence and they didn't cut anything.
Yeah.
And it still made tons of money. And then you've done a second one, and yet you've cut the violence back in an attempt to get a bigger audience. To make even more money than the first one and desperate grab for money.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's done really well.
They changed the director, haven't they?
I think, like Mark Kermode said, I think a bunch of people are going to see this, but they're going and seeing it and being disappointed.
I don't think many people are going to see Taken 3 for that.
Are they going to do a third one?
Yes, apparently.
Right. I don't know if Liam Neeson's going to be in it.
Well, then rumours like he might get taken, but what happens then?
Yeah, his daughter and his wife can rescue him in this one. Spoiler.
I'm in this chair.
I have some special skills.
They're
not relevant.
Hang on a moment.
let me get someone else to. Oh wait, hang on.
Unless he's going to pass on the mantle to someone else.
To his daughter, and his daughter is going to rescue him.
But
Anyway, so I think he was hoping it would be something grand, and then when he saw the final product, it was Taken 2.
I don't know. I mean, again, I don't want the fact that I've said I don't think it's as good as people think should put any dampeners on this film, because I think it is still a great film.
It is. It's a great, almost Bond-like film. It's got some spectacular martial arts, some great scenes, some great one-liners. It's a good mix of comedy and action. And you see, I talk more about this Bruce Lee film than any of the others. If people sort of ask me about martial arts film, it's one of the first that will come to mind. It's one that's the most quotable. I'm not saying those things necessarily make a good film, but it's one that's stuck in my mind for 30 years. And it's, the first time I saw it was probably that long ago. So it's a great film for many, many reasons. If you haven't seen it,
I think everyone must see it, and I think I'm really pleased I watched it again, because I've always been like, Enter the Dragon, it's not really that as good as everyone says. Oh dear, don't say it too loud, and I can't quote any of the lines. But actually now, I think that I understand what everyone makes such a big fuss about.
Yeah.
But there are some other things that I think are poorly done.
No, fair enough. It's a fair assessment. I think it's a fair assessment. So, are you ready to give it a score?
Okay, yes.
You go first. Please do.
I'm going to give it a 3.
3 out of 5 bags of action. I think Barry will be having words with you, but go on.
I think the action movie world will be having word with me, because I think it's right in the middle. Because I think some of the weaker points that I've previously highlighted, Your Honour, I would say are lower than a 3. But the actual Bruce Lee fight, if you just put a montage of the Bruce Lee fighting everyone,
yes,
it's a 5. If you then added to that montage Roper being cool and funny, and Williams being extremely funny with all the dialogue and everything, it's a 6 out of 5. If that's even possible.
No,
it's not possible.
5 is maximum.
But, okay, it's a 5. But if you've got to, I think you've got to take into account, the bags of action have to have some substance wrapped around them, or they'll fall out. So
stretching the metaphor a little bit.
Slightly. So I'm gonna say a 3, because I think it's half amazing, half incredulous.
Wow, exciting.
But I saw Enter the Ninja before I saw Enter the Dragon, so again, my mindset might be slightly skewed.
I'm going to be slightly more generous, because I probably enjoyed it a bit more. I'm going to give it 4. I'm not actually going to give it the full 5. Because, as you said, if I cut the best bits of The Phantom Menace, then that's the fight scenes, it's 5 out of 5. Anything else is 0 out of 5. Whereas with this, I think watching it back after so many years, there's a lot I can still admire about it. Not just Bruce Lee, but all of the stuff we've talked about. In terms of the martial arts films that came after it, fairly recently after that, and very recently in the last sort of 10, 15 years, some of them are just that much better. So I think I'm going to have to give it 4 out of 5.
Okay.
It's very, very good. There's lots of things that would make me want to go and see it again, but it's not something I would watch all the time. Is that fair?
That is fair. It's your opinion, so it can only be fair.
It is fair. That's fair. So, if you've seen Enter the Dragon, let us know. Send us in your rating and
shout at me.
Yes, come on Twitter and tell us.
Basically, an action movie heathen.
Come on to Twitter and tweet Bags of Action and let us know your score. For you can't have half bags. Has to be somewhere between 1 and 5 bags.
Not 6.
No 6 bags.
Established that today.
Yeah, there's no 6 bags. It has to be 1 and 5. No half bags. What would you give Enter the Dragon? So let us know.
You have been listening to Bags of Action. No bullshit. You'd better stick around for the next episode, because if you're lying, I'll be back.